After the Snow on Revenge of the 80s Radio from Modern English's album of the same name. Modern English is touring this year, and it'll be a special series of concerts. We'll discuss that. Why are we discussing that? They're also soon going to release a new album. With me to talk about all of that is the band's lead singer, Robbie Grey. Welcome to Revenge of the 80s, Robbie.
Well, thanks very much, Chris. Looking forward to it.
After the Snow was the album that spawned your international hit, I Melt With You. It was in the movie Valley Girl. But the funny thing about that track, it was a number 70 hit in the U.S. Well, 78, I believe.
Yeah.
It became one of the rare tracks that did not chart high originally. It became a timeless classic. Somewhere along the line was redone by you, the same band, and charted, yet the original still remained immortal. Interesting history.
Yeah, it's a song that pays our bills, let's put it that way. It's been covered by so many bands. And it's a worldwide hit now, not so much just a sort of American or a European hit. We played the Philippines 2 years ago, and it's a massive song over there as well. It's just known all over the world, so it's fantastic for us.
It's nice to have a song that even young people will sing along to.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good because, like I say, it helps us financially, really. We don't have to worry too much about finances, so we can kind of do a lot of the music that we want to do on the back of, receiving royalties for Melt With You. It's been used in, Burger King adverts, car adverts, T-Mobile adverts for mobile phones, you name it. It's been used for a lot of things. And if you go onto YouTube, you can see so many different versions of it, including, harp versions, classical versions. It's amazing the longevity that song seems to have.
It was kind of an instant success for you and the band.
Yeah, it was, it's something we didn't know was going to happen. We were recording After the Snow with Hugh Jones, the producer, in Wales, in Great Britain, and we were getting feedback that, this song, I Melt With You, was kind of being played on import in America. It wasn't even released at that point. It was just getting played by radio stations on import. So it was just a crazy thing. It was like wildfire. A few radio stations played it, then a few more played it, and then it just became crazy, And then by the time we'd recorded the video for the MTV video for I Melt With You, which was very cheaply made, it was made for about $2,000, and became one of the kind of most played videos on MTV that year. So, I mean, it was kind of taking off for us at that point. That was like 1982, 83. It was a kind of crazy time for us because we weren't expecting that. I mean, in Europe, we were more of an underground art band where, it's a bit more intellectual sort of music, I suppose you'd call it. But in America, we broke commercially very big.
$2,000? Well, that just goes to prove you don't have to spend tens of thousands on a big-time ZTT video.
No, I mean, I helped carry the props in. I mean, it was done very, very cheaply. I mean, it was all new back then. Video was just breaking, and all that sort of stuff. So people were doing things on the fly, on the cheap. I think all those videos from the English bands, especially back then, were all kind of done. They weren't very expensive in that first year on MTV. I mean, it was an exciting time.
In the early 80s, and even these days, the do-it-yourself type bands have been really big. They managed to get these huge cult followings, and sometimes they just push through doing what they do.
Yeah, I think the whole kind of digital explosion where you don't have to have thousands and thousands of pounds to go into a studio. You can kind of record at home. We've been doing a lot of that with our latest album. We've got a recording studio in an art gallery, but we've recorded it all into Logic, which is a music program. You don't need to go into expensive studios anymore. So a lot of the newer bands can do it that way by saving money and just, doing it all themselves, and then putting it all online on YouTube, having their own websites. It's a bit kind of DIY culture, a bit like it was in the early 80s in a way with the small independent record companies.
Now, I'll have to interject here because I must tell you, changing the band's name from The Lepers to Modern English was quite the savvy business move.
Yeah, that was the drummer's idea, actually. Richard Brown, he said, what about Broken English, which was a Marianne Faithfull album at the time, if you remember. And we all sort of ummed and ahed, and then we just thought, what about Modern English? We're doing something very modern. We're English. it certainly helped for our popularity in America, I think, the name Modern English.
I want to get back to the song for just one more little bit here. I Melt With You is an iconic romantic song, and people played at their weddings, and they love to sing it or dance to it with their girlfriends. But the fact is, it was actually set to be about a couple having relations while nuclear bombs were going off.
Yeah, I mean, it was a Cold War period, if you remember, and I mean, you know, London was sort of black and white. There wasn't much money. I mean, there was this whole thing between America, I think, going back all those years, it was Reagan and I think it was Gorbachev at the time, and there was, you know, it wasn't, you didn't have good relations with the Russians, and there was all this worry that, you know, someone was going to send over a nuclear bomb and then someone was going to send one back and then the whole world would get annihilated. So my vision was that these people are making love, you know, just as the bomb drops, and it's the last thing they get the chance to do. I thought it was quite romantic.
Robbie Grey is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. That's a good point. Britain was our strongest ally during the Cold War with Russia. We all grew up on this end worried about the possibility of a nuclear fight between the U.S. and USSR here in the States. But what was it like for you in Britain, being directly in the middle of it? And I mean both physically and metaphorically.
Well, it's kind of, you know, Margaret Thatcher was our Prime Minister at the time. She's not a woman or a leader that I particularly have any fond memories of at all. She wasn't a good person in my book, but she was strong. That was the thing about her. And she was very much, hand in hand with Ronald Reagan, who was your Prime Minister at the time. And I suppose being in the middle of it, you know, that their relationship was always on our television sets. So we knew that, the strength of the two countries would kind of see us through, I suppose.
Now, before we move on to the new music, because I really want to talk about the upcoming album, an interesting fact about Modern English that maybe your fans might not know. You all were learning your instruments as you went along in the early days.
Yeah, it was punk rock. Punk rock is why Modern English, or the Lepers, changed the name to Modern English. That's why we started it. You know, before punk rock, music was what other people did. After punk rock, everyone was making music, and we were one of those bands. All the bands back then, U2, you name them, Simple Minds, all these bands came out after punk rock. And as we sort of picked up our instruments and learned them, that it was a growing process, which is why the difference between the first album, Mesh and Lace, and the second album, After the Snow, is so big, because on the first album we're learning, guitarists and keyboard players. I was still shouting, it's all that kind of very early sound. And then After the Snow is much more relaxed with strings on it and acoustic guitars. We've learned our skills a little bit more. I'm not shouting anymore. I'm actually singing more, which is, the Hugh Jones, the producer, really helped me with that.
Robbie Grey from Modern English is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Now, the mainstream American audience did miss out on a lot of Modern English's music, aside from I Melt With You and maybe the occasional hit that snuck through, like Hands Across the Sea. Like you mentioned, the album sounded very different each time. I guess maybe less orchestrated, but more because you all evolved as musicians.
Yeah, I mean, we always thought as a band that we didn't want to make the same album every time. We didn't want to sort of sound the same. We always wanted to make, different sounding albums. And across the three, there's Mesh and Lace, After Snow, and Ricochet Days. I mean, Ricochet Days is much more like After the Snow than anything else. But even on that, we tried to make the arrangements more difficult and make it more musical. And now we fast forward to 2016, and we've just done a pledge campaign, and we've recorded a whole new album, and that doesn't sound like anything we've done before. We've got one track's got an orchestra on it. It sounds something like the Righteous Brothers or something like that, or the Walker Brothers. We've got, very, very different this album's going to be. I'm really looking forward to people hearing it. It should be out sometime later in the year, I would have thought.
Let's talk about the new album. Back in 2010, you released Soundtrack, which featured some music from, some of the years you had stuff on the shelf. Talk about some of the tracks here, because you just said one has an orchestra, a couple have different sounds or feels to it. Tell us about what your fans might expect to hear with this upcoming album.
Well, what's interesting about the album is that we've got this little studio, as I said, in this art gallery. And this art gallery's got a big open space, which has got its own kind of sound to it. So we recorded a lot of things live in there. So you get the sound of the drum kit and the guitars and the vocals, we did it all to get the whole sound of the room. So the album's got a sort of sense of a live album in a way, because it's the sound of this room, which is very sort of got a nice reverb to it. But then we would add things to it. Like we met this young composer he's composed on 3 or 4 of the tracks on the album. There's 10 tracks, and he's kind of put some classical music across 3 or 4, orchestrated 3 or 4 of those songs. So there's a real mixture of stuff. There's the usual hard guitars from Gary. There's a real mixture of quite very modern sounding tracks, and these orchestrated tracks, really. People have to hear it. It's a mixture of Mesh and Lace and After the Snow, I suppose.
So were there some things you could do in this album that you weren't able to do in the past as a musician?
Yeah, quite a lot of things, because we'd always wanted to, especially the orchestrated thing, we'd always wanted to do that. I mean, there's elements of that on After the Snow and Ricochet Days, but we never were able to do it, fully. And to do it on this album's been a kind of a bit of a dream for everybody, I think. And, one of the tracks on there, I remember when I was a kid, films like Midnight Cowboy, which had a great soundtrack to it, and all these amazing sort of, Elvis Presley was doing Vegas in the 70s, and he had these sort of big bands behind them. And we've done a couple of tracks like that. There's a song called Trees and a song, It Don't Seem Right, and they sound like they're from a different era. One sounds like it's from the 60s and one sounds like it's from the 70s, and that's quite exciting, I think.
Robbie Grey of Modern English is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Modern English has a new album coming out. It's in the works, and you have a pledge drive that you mentioned a little while ago. How's that going?
That's been amazing. We've raised over $30,000. People could, pick to, do different things with the band. Like I've written now probably, 20 handwritten lyrics for I Melt With You, which people have bought. I'm going to dinner with somebody in San Diego, paid to go to dinner with me. You can get, downloads of the album for $10. I mean, it's still going on. If anyone wants to go to the pledgemusic.com, they can still do, they can still find things, to buy there. But it's coming to an end pretty soon, because the album's nearly, we're just about to finish it. We're on the final mixes right now.
I know it's been delayed every once in a while here. When do you expect the album to be ready for release?
I would imagine it would come out in the fall, because we've got this tour coming up, the Mesh and Lace tour, where we're playing the whole album, Mesh and Lace, for the first time on our early 4AD singles. We'll be doing that till the middle of June. Then we're coming back to Europe and playing in Europe in June and July. And then we're coming back to America in August for some more concerts, which would fit in more, with your radio station. It's bands like The Fix and Human League, and we're going to be touring with bands like that then. And then I'd imagine the album would come out around September, October.
Now you're embarking on the North American leg of that Mesh and Lace tour. You'll be playing the entire first album and the earlier songs like you said before. I know you'll be playing I Melt With You as well. Well, what inspired you to just set out and say, hey, let's play the entire Mesh and Lace album?
Well, it's funny. A promoter from Seattle in America just sent us an email on our Facebook page saying, how would you feel about playing the Mesh and Lace album and some of the very early 4AD singles? And we just sort of sat down and thought we'd never done it before. And we just liked the idea. It just sounded like a really good thing to do. It takes us away a little bit from, the more commercial side of what we do. It takes us into sort of, edgier music, which is what our early stuff was like. So we decided to revisit it. And we're doing, I think, 20 concerts. We start in Seattle and go down the West Coast, and we end up in Brooklyn and New York just about the first week in June, I think. So we're there all the way through May and into the first or second week in June in America playing the Mesh and Lace album.
Now, the band broke up a few times and reformed, sometimes with some new members. What brought you back together in recent years? And tell us about the lineup as it stands now.
Well, this is the whole original band apart from the drummer. This is Modern English, as it was from 1981, 2, 3. It's the original band, except for the drummer. And we got back together this time round because Mick Conroy, who's the bass player, moved quite close to where I live in England, which is just a place outside London called Suffolk. And I was living here, and Mick moved here, and he sent me an email, showed me a boat that he'd bought, 'cause he lives on a houseboat. And he just said, I'm living in this town, and this little town is literally 20 minutes from where I live. So we just met up for a chat, really, just to meet up and say hello again. And he's the one who said, should we get the band back together? So we did.
Oh, why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, everybody else is.
Yeah, I know. I mean, literally everybody else is.
Well, that's the funny thing these days, and I talk about this with other bands or artists that have put out new music. It's the time. The internet has enabled groups and individual singers to bypass radio stations nowadays and get exposure other ways. And their fans find them. They're longtime fans, and then along the way, they get new ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a question of if you really want to do it, if you still want to be creative, you know, I mean, you're not going to make much money these days, you know, really. You're not going to be, it's not going to be like the 80s where there was so much money flying around, it was ridiculous. But if you want to be creative and you've got the time and you can afford to do it, you know, there's no stopping anyone making music these days. It's really a simple thing to do. And like you say, you can connect with people all over the internet. I mean, these people who put the Mesh and Lace tour on, they just sent us an email. That would never have happened 20, 30 years ago. Just no one would have been able to contact us. So that's pretty amazing, I think.
And, of course, all this brings more people into you when you go on the road. Yeah.
And, you know, and also things like having a Facebook page and Twitter, which I don't do. But Mick Conroy, our bass player, does a lot of that stuff. He's more switched on to all the sort of modern media stuff. I mean, it opens up doors and people can connect directly with you, which is a really good thing.
Modern English is on Facebook, and your official band website is modernenglish.me. That's modernenglish.me.
That's right. That's where we are.
Robbie Grey, thank you for joining us here on Revenge of the 80s Radio, and good luck on tour, and yes to the band. Best wishes on the new album.
Well, thanks very much, Chris, and it's been nice talking to you, mate.
As we await your new Modern English album, let's play a track from your 2010 collection, Soundtrack. Here's It's Okay.